Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Guitar Show podcast. I am your host, Christian Roebling, and today's very special guest is Rick Derringer. Rick was our second guest in the series. Now, a little bit about the Guitar Show series is needed. The series began in 1984 with our first guest, Les Paul. If you haven't seen that episode, do check it out. The Guitar Show aired every Monday night at 11 p.m. on Manhattan Cable Television in New York City. We were the first and only weekly television show dedicated to the guitar and the manufacturers in the world back then. Imagine that. Today, with the advent of cell phones, the digital world, YouTube, etc., there are zillions of guitar-related videos seen from around the world. Back then, we were the only one. I was fortunate enough to work in a small television studio, so I had access to tape video shows on a weekly basis. We were in the right place at the right time. After Les Paul, I wondered who we could get on the next episode. A friend of mine, Lisa Yap, knew Liz Derringer, who was Rick's wife, and I got in touch with Rick on the phone. He was a bit standoffish, but when I told him Les Paul was on, he changed his tune and agreed to come on. He couldn't have been nicer. I always liked Rick when he had a number one hit in the 60s with the McCoys called Hang On Sloopy, and of course the classic rock and roll Hoochie Koo. I got to see Rick with Johnny Winter and live in Philadelphia, and they blew the roof off the place. The opening act was the Allman Brothers, when Dwayne was alive. It was one of the best shows I've ever seen. So let's give a listen to our special guest, Rick Derringer.
It seems every guitar player that I ever speak to buys their first guitar from Sears. Is this true with you too?
Well, it wasn't really a Sears guitar, but I think it was, actually I think it was called a Harmony guitar. And it was similar to Les Paul that we have today, the first one I had. My parents got it for me. I don't think they got it at Sears, though.
Yeah. Do you still have it somewhere?
Close to it. No. No, I was very quickly into guitar trading, and that one went, what was the second one I got? I got a Supro guitar after that, a white Supro with 3 pickups, 3 gold pickups, flashiest guitar I ever saw in my life. Had lots of knobs on it. That was the second one, and then I went from there to a Gretsch called Silver Jet, one that had, like the Girl in the Go-Go's plays now, with the silver front, silver sparkle front. And then the rest is history.
The rest is history. Have you ever had any formal training?
I almost feel like it's wrong for people to say they're self-taught. And I really don't understand the difference between just learning to play the guitar from all the possible ways we can learn to play the guitar and what they call formal education on guitar.
It seems like you learn from other guitarists throughout the time, right?
But that seems to be the best way to learn to me. In other words, for some reason we get this idea that when somebody says they're formally educated,
it's like class.
It gives you like, this guy is really cool.
Get a degree.
Yeah, and I've found in reality that there's probably not any difference between whether a person is formally educated or whether they learn just on the street. So it's a hard question to really, I get that question a lot. It's hard for me to answer because I think I'm taught by everyone I meet.
Yeah, so it's informal training, I guess. Right?
It's informal, but not self-taught by any means.
Who were some of your earlier influences?
Well, when I first started playing guitar, I was 9 years old. That was back in 1956. And in 1956, that was the year when Elvis Presley was really getting most popular. He was really bursting onto the scene. So his guitar player was one of my major influences, Scotty Moore. And Scotty Moore, I think, is still one of the best rock guitar players. You can go back and listen to those old solos. James Burton, I loved him when he was playing all those early Rick Nelson records. But I'm from the Midwest. There's a lot of country music in the Midwest, so I listen to Chet Atkins a lot, Les Paul, of course, Merle Travis, Hank Garland, Wes Montgomery, Kenny Burrell.
So you got a wide variety of influences.
Yes, because nowadays we are kind of sheltered musically in some ways. When we turn on the radio, it's always the same kind of music, pretty much, over the majority of the radio band, AM or FM. In those days, the radio wasn't quite so provincial, it wasn't so labeled, and there was just more music available of different kinds. So I feel like in some ways it was an advantage to start playing at that time over the people that start playing now.
But it ends up showing in your work today, being that you're so versatile to play all these different styles. Is that from the influences that you've got back then?
I think specifically, yeah. My parents had a great record collection when I was a little kid. I mean, not like thousands of records or anything, but they were into music, and they had a lot of records, and it was all different kinds of music. One of the helpful ones for my work nowadays is Spike Jones. We had a lot of Spike Jones records, and in doing the Al Yankovic records, we really kind of feel like we are the modern equivalent of Spike Jones for today.
Yeah, he was fun. I'm going to throw out some names of guitar players, and you know, maybe you could say something about what you think about them. And Eric Clapton.
Eric Clapton is a great guitar player. I don't know exactly when he grew up, but it seems like he's changed somewhere along the line and isn't quite as flashy as he was in his younger days. But
he seems to mature somehow, I find. I saw him with Roger Waters, and it was a different...
It's a different guy. It just seems like a whole different person. His playing's totally different and everything. But he's still just as good as ever, I think. But it's a totally different style nowadays. It's weird.
And Jeff Beck is...
Jeff Beck is probably my favorite all-around guitar player. You know what? He does a lot of the same stuff that Les Paul does. He's able to let his personality come through his music. That means it's not mannered and it's not the same thing every time. Right. When I did some shows with Jeff in the past, one of the things that we always were surprised is to see what kind of mood Jeff was in that night.
Because
it changes every few seconds, and it comes out of his music, which is the good thing. If he's in a bad mood, he might not sound very good one night. But if he's in a great mood, he might sound spectacular. And I think that's a great thing, to allow your personality to come through your music, because all it is a communication of emotions anyway. Right. So, you know, the best thing you can do for your music is to allow that to happen. Les Paul has always allowed his sense of humor to come through his music, I thought.
Yeah. How about Stevie Ray Vaughan?
Stevie Ray. I've known Stevie Ray Vaughan for about 8 years now. I used to come and see him play. His band was still Double Trouble in those days.
And in Austin, Texas?
Austin, and all around the South. I've seen him in Louisiana. His little band, as a club band, traveled all over the place. Whenever I'd hear of him playing, we'd go and I'd jam a lot with him. And for a while, I was even asking the A&R people at major labels to whether they were interested in recording him. In other words, I wanted to produce him 6, 7 years ago.
So you expected him to be as...
I thought he was a great blues guitar player for today. My problem that I encountered was the record company said, "What is he, white and plays blues?" And I said, "Yeah." And they go, "Well, what are we going to do with him?" Well, we found out what they can do with him right now. He's very successful, making music that we all like.
Yeah, he sure is. How about Tal Farlow? It's the other end of the spectrum.
Tal Farlow was another guy I liked when I was little. I forgot to mention him before. When I was younger, I used to listen to a lot of Tal Farlow stuff. He's the guy really that first time, he's the guy that popularized playing whole entire solos with harmonics only. Mm-hmm. Until that point, people had used a few harmonics here and there for little embellishments, we'll call them. And Tal Farlow really, that was his gimmick. The thing he brought on the scene was he could play whole monster solos all in harmonics. Now, he didn't need a gimmick. He's a great guitar player. He still is. Tal Farlow is also interesting because he's a very strong man. Whenever the music business got a little too much for him, whenever it got to be like too intense, or he was bothered by it or didn't like it, he would just stop and go back to his hometown and become a sign painter. Yeah. And he'd paint signs. And he's just recently, in the last few years, come back into music again, and he's a little more active. Yeah, he's a great guitarist.
Yeah, I got to see him at a library in his hometown. I think it was when he first started coming back and playing, and he played a radio show there, and his family was in the front row. So it was really nice and intimate.
He thinks in big harmonic terms. Yeah. He's a big thinker when it comes to a player.
Do you think some of the players are overrated today? I mean, you know, with the, I don't know if it's MTV or what it is that brings people out to make them superstars before they get a chance to.
Well, there's one thing that's always existed and it still exists. Music is not a contest. It is not a contest. It has nothing to do with being a contest. And for some reason, human beings have this fantastic fascination with contests. And everything has to be lists, 1 through 10, you know, and 10 always seems to be less favorable than 1. And in music, that just is not the case. The only way I guess you can really overrate a guitar player is to say he's superhuman or to say he's God or something like that. We don't really say that. So I don't think really there's that much overrating. But on the other hand, I just don't like to see them sort of kind of always put in this competitive kind of nature. that argument or discussion will never stop, I don't think, because we as humans love to see that. We love to make things into competitions.
Yeah.
And music just is not.
Yeah.
It's not a contest.
Well, it seems the mark of a good guitar player is his longevity. I mean, the Claptons and you've been in the industry and gone through so many changes. I think that's really what kind of makes a guitar player special, not that they get burned out after one album.
Good. I'm glad of that. Thanks.
Your association with Johnny Winter, you put out some incredible guitar albums. I remember seeing you back in Philadelphia, of all places. And what was it like with playing with Johnny Winter, and how did he influence you? And
it was fantastic. Johnny's a great player. He's a better player than he lets us all hear, strangely enough. I don't know why, but he can even play better than he allows us to hear him play. He remembers every solo ever played on any rock record. He doesn't necessarily, we don't get the opportunity to hear him do that, to play old solos that have been played from the past. But he remembers every solo note for note that's ever been played on any rock record that he's heard. And that's hardly an exaggeration. Might be a little bit, but it's very, very little. Johnny is fascinated, though, with not appearing learned. Johnny and Edgar, both being albinos and both being nearly the same age, when they were little kids, were always kind of lumped together as that white kid down the street, that funny albino kid down the street. And it wasn't one kid, it was two kids. Yeah. So when they grew up, they really both, although they think a lot alike and are a lot alike, they've both seemed to have developed different personalities, and they love to play those characters, kind of, to have their own individuality so that they don't become one person. And I think that's a curious thing about them. It's fun to watch their careers, because Edgar always wants to tend toward the jazzy and intellectual and conservative, and Johnny always wants to gravitate toward the earthy, bluesy, crazy.
Yeah. The same is true. You also played with Ted Nugent in your Rock Spectacular at the Ritz. And what was it like playing with this crazy guy? I mean, and does playing with these people make the bounce back and forth
Always.
make you play better
Always.
or something?
Always. When there's a good player on stage, it always inspires another player. And I think that's what people confuse with competition.
Exactly.
I never looked at it as competitive in that way. To me, if a guy, I would rather play with the best players in the world. That's the best people to play with, because they inspire me to play better. There is always that bounce back and forth effect that happens. But I think people tend to then look at it and go, there's a big competition going on. And then then the musicians start to feel like that's being perceived. And then the next thing you know, one guy will go, oh, I don't want to play with you, man, because you're always showing off. But that really is not what it is. And I think that's the biggest shame about this whole thing is I don't understand why people have to feel like that. It's not competitive. It's musical.
Right.
You're listening to the Guitar Show podcast with our very special guest today, Rick Derringer. You can see short video clips of the Guitar Show on our YouTube channel. Besides a clip from Rick, there are over 75 clips of guests like Jimmy Page, Eddie Van Halen, Danny Gatton, Joe Pass, Tal Farlow, Clarence Gatemouth Brown, and many, many more. And make sure you subscribe to our channel. It doesn't cost anything, and you'll find an incredible historic library of guitar greats. For more information about the Guitar Show, go to our website at frontrowmusic.com. And now back to our guest, Rick Derringer.
Rick, what do you see for the future of the guitarists? I mean, every time we think that the guitar players are played out, one pops up with a whole unique style.
Yeah.
Adrian Belew and.
Well, I think we have maybe perfected the vibrato on guitars so that they don't go out of tune as easily through Floyd Rose's, and Kaler's is the one I like in particular, Kaler vibrato. But I think that's a major change in guitars. It makes, until now, for a guitar player to use the vibrato arm, he's had to have a guitar that really was very well broken in and in a lot of ways was a freak, because they really didn't work properly. They didn't stay in tune very well. And the ones that did were very unusual. So that made that style of playing more rare than it is now. For the first time, every guitar player can become a kind of vibrato specialist. Since I've been using them just for the last few years on my guitars now, I really find that when I pick up a guitar without a vibrato, it's like a necessary means of expression is gone. And I never felt like that before. So that's what a major change, I think, for guitarists. It opened up for everybody. They can all do that now. And music, in general, seems to be, once again, becoming more for everyone. I've noticed in general on radio right nowadays, everybody is very concerned with crossover. They would like their records to be as successful in a crossover kind of way as Prince's are, for instance. Prince is able to sell to every market. He's able to get played on every radio kind of station that exists. And that whole way of thinking is bringing about a new kind of radio format that I've noticed happening right now. And I think it's going to be probably a growing kind of format. And what that is just like in the old 60s radio. Top 40 meant what we all liked, and it didn't have to do with whether it was white, black, blues, rock, country, or anything. There's a station in Hollywood right now, KIIS, and that is their format, and it's quickly becoming the most popular station in Hollywood. And you might hear Peabo Bryson followed by the Thompson Twins, followed by George Jones. The only prerequisite is that it is a hit song, something that we all like, something that's on the charts and successful.
You take a great deal of pride in being the only rock and roll member.
I don't know. They like to say the only. I'm probably one of the rare ones. Is be a bit more accurate way to say it. I doubt whether I'm the only. But there aren't very many.
Of this organization, NASRA.
NARAS.
NARAS. Now, what is this organization and what does it do?
NARAS stands for the National Association of Recording Arts and Sciences. And they're the people that give away the Grammys each year.
So you vote for...
Right. Now, I don't know if your friends do, but my friends get together every year at Grammy time, and they watch the Grammys go past, and they go, "Where's Led Zeppelin? Where's the Stones?" And they get mad.
Yeah,
they go,
sure.
"You know, this isn't fair. This means nothing." So a couple years ago, the NARAS organization, understanding this and not liking it, because they want to be fair. They want to be congratulating good performances of their peers from their peers. And they wanted to be fair in every way. So in order to change this opinion, they tried to aggressively go out and get people like me to join the organization. And I did. I quickly became a governor in the New York chapter. And this year I was a trustee to the National Convention. And I'm now on the National Screening Board for the Grammys. But what I found out is there are mostly jazz people, classical people, engineers, people that write liner notes, disc jockeys, historians about music. All kinds of people are involved in voting for these Grammys, but very few real, modern, involved rock and rollers. Or in general, just the people involved in the music business that we know today. Those are the people that aren't there enough. And that's the only way this representation is going to be changed. So in other words, they tried to get people like me, and I'm there, but there aren't enough of me. And one of the things I'd like to say about NARAS here is just to tell other people to join. All the people in the music business should be joining. They should belong. They should be voting for the Grammys. And that way, we will be able to see a fairer representation, and we won't have to complain about what's wrong with them. There's nothing to stop anybody from joining. All you have to do is call them up, and they'll send you an application, and you're in. Yeah, a few years ago, I started to feel like I wasn't busy enough. I started to feel like I was getting lazy. And so specifically, I wanted to do a lot of projects. That's why I've been doing productions and playing on other people's records and my own career and the guitar and the pickups and everything. And the book now is just one of those things. We wanted to be busy. Jake, my manager, said, "Did you ever think about writing a guitar book?" And I said, "No, never thought about that at all." Right. He said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think it sounds like a lot of work." He said, "We'll get somebody to write it for you. Don't worry about a thing." Just typical manager talk, you know. So I said, "Okay, great idea. Let's write a guitar book." So once I actually got involved with it, I found out, and probably knew immediately anyway, nobody's going to write it for you. And you don't want anybody to write it for you anyway. So I started getting excited about the idea of putting together my ideas and thoughts and stuff about, you know, techniques, exercises, things like that. But I wanted to see the competition because it's been a while since I've looked at the guitar books. So I went out to several publishing companies, and then some music stores and stuff, and picked up all the new current books that are out. One of them I liked immediately. It said Jimi Hendrix, and one of the big songs listed on the front was Little Wing. I said, I've always wanted to play Little Wing just like Jimi Hendrix, and this is a great way to check out the competition. So that was one I bought. I took it home and I said, I've always wanted to play Little Wing just like Jimi Hendrix. Let's check this out. I opened up the book, and there were 3 giant staffs across this page. They were so big that there were only room for 3 staffs. Jimi Hendrix's name, about that big across the top, and then these 3 staffs. And the first staff wasn't even music. It had
E minor.
text written right over the staff, and the text said, we have not written out the part of the music up to the solo. We will start at the solo. And then the next line had the melody line of Little Wing's solo. Nothing that Jimi Hendrix ever played. He never played the melody in Little Wing. Anyway, but the melody line of the solo was written out. And then it said, we've included, I think, 15 seconds of the song, and we'll leave the rest of it up to you.
Oh, great.
Those kind of things. And I said, this is going to be a snap. I realized that what was lacking is people really giving knowledge to the buyer. I think people that have written guitar books in the past, guitarists that have written guitar books, have been so nervous
They don't want to give away
about their secrets and so guarded about their knowledge that they really are not giving it out. They are fooling the buyers into thinking they're giving out some knowledge to help them play the guitar, and in reality, all they're doing is giving them paper and taking their money. So what I did was specifically, I said, we're not going to have big staffs. Everything's going to be small and jam-packed. So the book doesn't look very big, but we start out right away with real stuff. And it is the real exercises that I use to practice before I go on stage at night, to limber up or whatever. There's exercises to stretch your fingers. There's exercises to lose dependency on your index finger. And there's exercises to make the little finger stronger. There's exercises for your technique, for your agility, for your accuracy.
For your speed, to build
Right,
up your speed.
right. There's specific exercises. I call it bidextral system, and that's all the 2 hands on the neck stuff. Eddie Van Halen certainly popularized, and now everybody's doing it. There's a whole section in the book devoted specifically to that. It shows you how to do it with words, diagrams, pictures, tablature, music.
Not only that, the great thing that I found, it has a little record in, so you can hear what it sounds like. It's great
Right.
because it's like.
And we wanted you to be able to hear what they're going to sound like when it's done. And then not only that, I think one of the interesting things is the individual exercises are put together into a full piece of music at the end of the book. So if you've completed all the exercises in the book and you can play them, then by the time you get to the end, it puts it all together into actually a big chunk of a solo that I play live a lot of times. And it's about a 6 or 7 minute solo piece of music for a guitar player. So you can actually see the fruits of your work.
Fantastic. And are you going to share some of your secrets with us and show us something?
Sure, we should go through some of those things. Why not?
Okay, why don't we do that now?
This exercise here specifically is called the spider.
Okay.
And a lot of kids that I hear from on the road when I travel around and play, they come up to me and they specifically go, I got that book and that spider was hard. But they all seem to be able to get it down.
So
we should try the spider. We should try the spider now. And this is good because it makes you use all 4 fingers. And it's not a normal way for your fingers to work. So, and I'll show you why it's called the spider, too.
Okay.
We don't give away too many of these secrets, though.
No.
Okay, good.
But do them real fast and they won't catch them.
Okay, but here's how the spider goes. And it's called the spider because it looks kind of like a spider when you play it. Now, the reason it's called the spider, you can see because it looks like the spider. I call it the figure 8 sometimes, too. It's called the figure 8 because it looks like a figure 8. That's the easiest way. Now, if you can see it close enough. In other words, your fingers make the pattern of a figure 8. They go here, and then there, and then there, and then there. A little figure 8. And then you do it across the fretboard, kind of like when you're doodling, where you make this little figure 8 pattern that keeps going on and on and on and on forever. It's like that. And they go in and... that's the Spider.
You are listening to the Guitar Show podcast with our very special guest, Rick Derringer. This episode was recorded back on August 31st, 1984. For more information about our podcast, go to our website at frontrowmusic.com.
Well, again, it's been a pleasure to have you. I'm sure it's been an education and information out there for all the players. And we'll go out with you doing some playing, if that's all right with you.
Fantastic.